The bitter taste of betrayal still lingered on my tongue as I opened my eyes to sunlight streaming through familiar white curtains. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared at the ceiling I hadn't seen in 3 years. The same water stain, shaped like a butterfly. The same crack running from corner to corner. This was my childhood bedroom, but I had died in a hospital bed just hours ago. I bolted upright, my hands trembling as I grabbed the phone from my nightstand. June 15th, 2021. 3 years before Charlotte's wedding. 3 years before she destroyed everything I held dear. This can't be real, I whispered, but the calendar on my phone confirmed it. I was 25 again, unmarried, still working at the marketing firm downtown, still naive enough to trust my sister with my life. The door burst open without warning. Charlotte swept in wearing her signature pearl earrings and that smile that never reached her eyes. Even at 23, she carried herself like royalty, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. "Gwen, finally awake! We need to talk about tonight." Tonight. The charity gala where I would first meet Alexander Ross, the man who would become my husband for exactly 2 years and 11 months before Charlotte stole him away. What about tonight? I kept my voice steady, though every instinct screamed at me to run. Charlotte perched on my bed, her manicured fingers drumming against my comforter. "I need you to come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." In my previous life, I had been thrilled by her invitation. Charlotte rarely included me in her social circle, always claiming I was too awkward for her sophisticated friends. I had spent hours picking the perfect dress, doing my makeup 3 times, desperate for her approval. What a fool I had been. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Alexander Ross. He's the heir to Ross Industries. Brilliant, handsome, successful." She paused, studying my face. "Perfect for you, actually. You two have so much in common, both bookish, both serious about your careers." The irony burned. Charlotte was right. Alexander and I were perfect for each other. We shared the same dry humour, the same passion for old movies, the same dream of travelling to small European towns. We had been genuinely happy until Charlotte decided she wanted him too. "I'm not really in the mood for blind dates, Charlotte." Her smile faltered for just a moment. "It's not a blind date, it's networking. Do you want to work at that tiny firm forever, or do you want connections that actually matter?" Classic Charlotte. She wrapped every manipulation in concern, every demand in opportunity. In my first life, her words had stung enough to make me agree. This time, I saw them for what they were. Bait. Fine. But I'm not promising anything. Charlotte's smile returned full force. "You don't need to. Just be yourself. Well, maybe a slightly better version of yourself. Wear the blue dress I bought you last Christmas. And for heaven's sake, do something with your hair." After she left, I sat in silence, processing the impossible. Somehow, I had been given a second chance. The question was what to do with it. In my previous life, I had met Alexander at the gala and fallen for him immediately. His quiet confidence, his genuine interest in my work, his way of listening like every word mattered. It had been intoxicating after years of Charlotte's dismissive treatment. We had dated for 6 months before he proposed. The wedding had been small and perfect. Everything Charlotte's elaborate celebration 2 years later was not. For almost 3 years, I had been genuinely happy. Until Charlotte decided she was bored with her husband, James. James Morrison was everything Charlotte had claimed she wanted. Wealthy, handsome, socially connected. Their wedding had been the event of the season, featured in 3 magazines. But James was also controlling, demanding, and had a temper that Charlotte quickly grew tired of managing. Alexander, meanwhile, had grown more successful, more attractive to Charlotte's status-obsessed mind. During family dinners, I caught her watching him, complimenting him just a little too enthusiastically. finding excuses to text him about family matters. The end came swiftly. Charlotte filed for divorce from James, claiming irreconcilable differences. 2 weeks later, she appeared at my door in tears, begging me to help her through the hardest time of her life. I made such a mistake, Gwen. James isn't who I thought he was. But Alexander, he's been so kind to me through all this, so understanding. I had been suspicious, but not suspicious enough. When Charlotte suggested we all take a weekend trip to her lake house to help her heal, I agreed. When she arranged for James to be there too, claiming she wanted closure, I believed her. That weekend, she orchestrated everything perfectly. Private conversations with Alexander while I was distracted with James, shared glances across the dinner table, a walk by the lake where she broke down and needed Alexander's comfort while I was inside doing dishes. By Sunday night, she had convinced both men that we had all been living lies, that she and Alexander were meant to be together, just as James and I were. Think about it logically, Gwen, she had said, cornering me in the kitchen while the men talked on the porch. You and James have so much more in common than you realise. You're both practical, both grounded. Alexander and I, we're dreamers. We think big. Alexander is my husband, Charlotte. And James is mine, but are we really happy, any of us? She had placed her hand on my arm, her touch gentle and poisonous. Marriage isn't about a piece of paper. It's about being with the right person. And I think we all know who our right person really is. The worst part was how she made it sound reasonable. How she twisted my love for Alexander into selfishness. My desire to keep my marriage into stubbornness. She painted herself as the victim of her own impulsive decision to marry James, and Alexander as the noble friend trying to help us all find happiness. Within a month, the paperwork was filed. Charlotte and I divorced our husbands and married each other's within 6 months. She got her fairy tale with Alexander, and I got a controlling, bitter man who resented being passed around like a trading card. Charlotte had played us all perfectly, and we had let her. But not this time. This time, I knew exactly who Charlotte really was, and I was going to use every advantage my second life had given me. I pulled out my laptop and began researching. Alexander's company had just landed a major contract with the city, information that wouldn't be public for another week. James's law firm was facing a sexual harassment lawsuit that would bankrupt them within 2 years. Charlotte's beloved trust fund was about to be frozen due to her father's tax evasion, though she wouldn't find out for 6 months. Knowledge was power, and I had 3 years' worth of it. My phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte. Wear the blue dress. Trust me on this one. I smiled grimly and texted back, of course, whatever you think is best. Tonight, I would meet Alexander Ross again, but this time, I would be ready for everything that came after. The grand ballroom at the Meridian Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the ambitions of Seattle's elite. I stood near the bar, watching Charlotte work the room in her emerald green gown, collecting admiration like currency. She had no idea that across the room, her future was crumbling in real time. James Morrison held court by the auction display, his confidence radiating as he discussed a recent victory in corporate litigation. In my previous life, I had found him intimidating, even impressive. Now, I saw the micro-expressions of stress around his eyes, the way his hand trembled slightly when he thought no one was looking. His firm's books were already hemorrhaging money from the lawsuit settlement they were desperately trying to keep quiet. The art collection is impressive this year. I turned to find Alexander Ross beside me, his dark hair slightly mussed from the evening breeze, his smile genuine in a room full of practiced expressions. My heart clenched with familiar warmth before I steeled myself. This time would be different. You think so? The Monet seems overpriced for a reproduction. He raised an eyebrow, following my gaze to the centerpiece painting. You have a good eye. Most people here wouldn't know the difference. most people here don't actually care about art. They care about being seen caring about art. Alexander laughed, a sound I had missed more than breathing. Cynical. I like that. Alexander Ross. He extended his hand. Gwen Sterling. His touch sent electricity through my palm, just as it had 3 years ago. Some things never changed. Sterling? Are you related to Charlotte Sterling? The one in the green dress who's been commanding attention all evening? My sister. I kept my voice neutral, though internally I catalogued his interest. In my first life, he had asked about Charlotte too, but only in passing. This time, his gaze lingered on her longer. She's quite magnetic. The word choice was deliberate. Not beautiful, not elegant, magnetic. Charlotte had always possessed that quality, the ability to draw people into her orbit whether they wanted to be there or not. That's one way to put it. I sipped my wine, watching him process my tone. Tell me about Ross Industries. I heard about the Morrison Group partnership. Alexander's attention snapped back to me, surprise flickering across his features. That hasn't been announced yet. It will be. Monday morning, if my sources are correct. I let the implications hang between us. In my previous life, I had stumbled through our first conversation, nervous and eager to please. This time, I had advantages. What exactly do you do, Gwen? Marketing, currently. But I'm considering a career change. I turned to face him fully. I have some insights about the legal industry that might interest you, specifically about firms that look successful on paper but won't survive the next 2 years. His eyes sharpened. Alexander had built his fortune on calculated risks and insider knowledge. I was speaking his language now. That's a bold claim. Morrison and Associates will file for bankruptcy by December 2023. Sexual harassment settlements, tax irregularities, and 3 major clients pulling out after James Morrison's personal conduct becomes public knowledge. I watched his face carefully. You might want to reconsider any long-term partnerships with them. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, studying me with new intensity. You seem very certain about something that hasn't happened yet. I'm good at reading patterns. People think James Morrison is untouchable because of his connections, but powerful men fall harder when they finally fall. And you're telling me this because you seem like someone who appreciates useful information, and because I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of each other. Before he could respond, Charlotte materialized beside us like a heat-seeking missile. Her smile was dazzling, her approach perfectly timed to interrupt at the most intriguing moment. Gwen, there you are. I see you've met Alexander. She extended her hand to him with practiced grace. Charlotte Sterling, I've heard wonderful things about your work with sustainable development. All good things, I hope. Alexander took her hand, his politeness automatic, but his attention still partially on me. Only the best. Gwen was just telling me how brilliant you are. Charlotte's lie flowed effortlessly. She's always been better with words than I am. I watched the familiar dance begin. Charlotte positioning herself as the modest, charming sister while subtly diminishing me. In my first life, I had felt grateful for her praise, not recognizing the manipulation underneath. Actually, we were discussing business, I interjected smoothly. Alexander was very interested in my insights about the legal market. Charlotte's smile flickered for just a moment. She hadn't expected me to hold my own in this conversation. How fascinating, though I'm sure Alexander deals with much more complex matters than we could understand. She turned to him with wide, admiring eyes. Your environmental initiatives must be so rewarding, making the world a better place and all of that. It was a masterful redirect away from business and toward Alexander's passion projects, where Charlotte could play the role of impressed audience. but I had learned her playbook by heart. The water purification project in Bangladesh is particularly impressive, I added. The partnership with local NGOs shows real commitment beyond profit margins. Alexander looked surprised. You've done your research. I believe in understanding the people I'm talking to. I met his gaze directly. Surface-level conversations are a waste of everyone's time. Charlotte's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She had expected to control this interaction, to position herself as the desirable sister while I faded into the background. Instead, I was matching her move for move. Well, she said with a bright laugh, you two certainly have a lot to discuss. I should probably mingle with the other guests. She touched Alexander's arm lightly. It was lovely meeting you. I hope we'll see more of each other. As she glided away, Alexander watched her go with an expression I recognized from my previous life. Intrigued, but not captivated. Not yet. Your sister seems nice, he said, but his tone suggested polite acknowledgement rather than genuine interest. She is, in her way. Charlotte has always been the social butterfly in the family. And you're the one who remembers what people actually say. I finished my wine and set the glass on a nearby table. I should probably rescue some other poor soul from the networking vultures. But Alexander, he waited. When you're ready to discuss that information about Morrison and Associates in more detail, you have my card. I had slipped it into his jacket pocket during our handshake, a move I had learned from watching Charlotte manipulate men for years. I don't remember you giving me your card. I smiled and walked away, leaving him to discover it later. Some mysteries were worth maintaining. Across the room, I caught Charlotte watching our interaction with calculating eyes. She had expected me to be overwhelmed by Alexander's attention, to stumble through the conversation and make her look better by comparison. Instead, I had planted seeds that would grow into something she couldn't control. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Dinner tomorrow, we have more to discuss. AR, I smiled and typed back. 7 o'clock, Chez Laurent. The game had begun, and this time I was playing to win. Chez Laurent buzzed with the quiet elegance of Seattle's most exclusive restaurant. Alexander sat across from me, his initial skepticism replaced by genuine fascination, as I laid out my predictions about Morrison and Associates with surgical precision. The harassment lawsuit will break open next month, I continued, cutting into my salmon. 3 more women will come forward by August. James has been using firm resources to silence them, but one of the victims kept records. You seem remarkably well informed about something that hasn't happened yet. I told you, I read patterns. James Morrison has a type, and he's been indulging that type for years. I met his gaze steadily. The question is whether you want to pull your consulting contracts before or after the scandal hits. Alexander leaned back, studying me with new respect. What do you want in return for this information? A job, senior marketing position at Ross Industries. I can do more than predict disasters. I can prevent them. And if you're wrong about Morrison, then you can fire me. I smiled, but I'm not wrong. My phone vibrated with a text from Charlotte. How's your little business dinner? Don't bore him to death with spreadsheets. I silenced it without responding, but not before Alexander noticed my expression. Sister checking in? Charlotte's always been protective of my social life. She thinks I'm too serious for most people. Are you? I'm focused. There's a difference. I set down my fork. Tell me about your family. Any siblings who think they know what's best for you? Only child. Sometimes I wonder if that's why I'm drawn to complicated family dynamics. His smile was wry. Your sister seems to care about you a lot. There it was, the opening Charlotte would have seized in my previous life. The chance to play victim, to paint myself as misunderstood and needing rescue. Instead, I chose honesty, wrapped in strategy. Charlotte cares about controlling outcomes. She's been arranging my life since we were children, usually to her benefit. I paused deliberately. She's actually the one who suggested I meet you tonight. Alexander's eyebrows rose. Really? And what was her reasoning? She thinks you'd be perfect for me. Serious, career-focused, intellectually compatible. I let the irony hang between us. She was right, actually. Just not in the way she intended. How so? She assumed I'd be grateful for her matchmaking and follow whatever script she'd written. But I've learned that the best partnerships are built on choice, not convenience. Alexander was quiet for a moment, processing the subtext. You're saying she has an agenda. I'm saying Charlotte always has an agenda. The question is whether you want to be part of it or forge your own path. Before he could respond, my phone rang. Charlotte's name flashed on the screen, her timing impeccable as always. I should take this, I apologised, stepping away from the table. Gwen, perfect timing. I need a huge favour. Charlotte's voice carried that breathless urgency she used when she wanted something. James Morrison just called. Apparently, there's some emergency with his law firm and he needs to leave town immediately for damage control. My blood chilled. In my previous life, Charlotte had never mentioned James having problems this early, but my conversation with Alexander must have prompted him to investigate, which accelerated the timeline. What does that have to do with me? He was supposed to escort me to the Hamilton Foundation Gala tomorrow night. It's a huge networking event and I can't show up alone. Could you ask Alexander to be my date instead? The audacity was breathtaking. Charlotte had orchestrated our meeting, encouraged my dinner with Alexander, and now wanted to claim him for herself at the first opportunity. Charlotte, I'm having dinner with him right now. I know. Isn't that perfect? You've already softened him up for me. Her laugh tinkled with false sweetness. Come on, Gwen. You know how important these events are for my social standing. Besides, you hate formal parties. In my first life, I had agreed immediately. I had been flattered that Charlotte trusted me to soften up a man for her, too naive to recognise the manipulation. I had even helped her pick out the perfect dress. Actually, Charlotte, I think I'll ask Alexander to escort me instead. Silence stretched across the line. Charlotte had never heard me refuse her so directly. What? You heard me. I'm having a wonderful time with Alexander, and I'd like to continue seeing him. If you need a date, I'm sure James can recommend one of his colleagues. Gwen, you can't be serious. Alexander Ross is way out of your league. The casual cruelty hit exactly as it had 3 years ago, but this time I was prepared for it. Maybe. We'll find out together. I kept my voice light. I have to go. My date is waiting. I hung up and returned to the table where Alexander was reviewing emails on his phone. Everything all right? He asked, looking up. Perfect. Charlotte wanted to know if you'd escort her to the Hamilton Foundation Gala tomorrow night. Alexander's expression was carefully neutral. And what did you tell her? That I was hoping you'd take me instead. He smiled, the first genuinely warm expression I'd seen from him all evening. I was going to ask you myself, actually. I have a table, and I could use someone who actually understands what I do for a living. It's a date, then. My phone buzzed with rapid-fire texts from Charlotte, each more frantic than the last. I silenced it completely. Popular evening for you, Alexander observed. Charlotte's not used to being told no. She'll adjust. I raised my wine glass. To new partnerships. To choosing our own paths, he corrected, touching his glass to mine. The next morning, Charlotte appeared at my apartment unannounced, her face flushed with anger beneath perfectly applied makeup. We need to talk. I let her in, noting how she examined my living room as if seeing it for the first time. Charlotte had always viewed my space as temporary, a way station before I found a man to support me properly. You're making a mistake with Alexander, she said without preamble. Am I? We seem quite compatible? Compatible isn't enough, Gwen. Men like Alexander need excitement, challenge, someone who can match their social status. She sat on my couch uninvited. You're wonderful, but you're not dynamic enough for someone like him. And you are. I understand how to navigate these circles. I know what wives of successful men actually do. Charlotte's voice carried the patient tone she used when explaining obvious truths to slow children. Alexander needs a partner who can enhance his reputation, not someone who talks about spreadsheets at dinner parties. Is that what James told you when you married him? Charlotte flinched. That's different. James and I, we had different goals. And now you want to trade up to Alexander. I want what's best for everyone involved. She leaned forward earnestly. Think about it logically, Gwen. You've had one dinner with him. I could make him truly happy. The way you made James happy? James was a mistake. I was young. I thought I wanted security over passion. Her mask slipped slightly, revealing the calculating woman underneath. But Alexander represents everything I actually need. Need or want. Both. Charlotte stood, her composure returning. I'm trying to be generous here, Gwen. I could simply take him if I wanted to. Men are surprisingly easy to redirect when you know which buttons to push. There it was, the threat I remembered from my previous life. Charlotte's absolute confidence in her ability to steal any man I cared about. Then, why are you here asking permission? Because I love you, and I want us both to be happy. She moved toward the door. Just think about what I said. Alexander deserves someone who can truly appreciate what he has to offer. After she left, I sat in the silence of my apartment, processing the conversation. Charlotte had revealed her hand much earlier this time, desperate to claim Alexander before our connection could deepen, but she had also made a critical error. In my previous life, she had been patient, subtle, slowly undermining my confidence while building her own appeal. This time, her urgency was showing, and desperation made people careless. I picked up my phone and texted Alexander. Looking forward to tonight. Fair warning, Charlotte may try to intercept you before then. His response came immediately. Good thing I prefer women who give me honest warnings instead of pleasant surprises. The battle lines were drawn, but this time I was ready for war. The Hamilton Foundation Gala glittered with Seattle's elite, but I only had eyes for Charlotte as she made her entrance. She had chosen a stunning red gown that turned heads across the ballroom, her confidence radiating like a weapon. She didn't know that James Morrison had been arrested 3 hours ago for embezzlement and tax evasion. Alexander squeezed my hand gently. You look nervous. Just anticipating fireworks. I smoothed my midnight blue dress, the same one I had worn to our wedding in my previous life. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose. Charlotte spotted us immediately, her smile faltering when she saw Alexander's arm around my waist. She approached with determined grace, but I noticed the slight tremor in her hands. Gwen, Alexander, what a lovely surprise. Her voice carried forced brightness. I wasn't sure you'd make it after, well, everything that's happened today. What's happened? Alexander asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Oh, you haven't heard? James Morrison was taken into custody this afternoon. Something about financial irregularities at his firm. Charlotte's eyes flicked to me accusingly. Such shocking news. No one could have predicted it. Actually, Alexander said smoothly, Gwen warned me this might happen. I pulled all our contracts with Morrison and Associates last week. Charlotte's mask slipped completely. She warned you? Extensively. Your sister has remarkable insight into people's true natures. Alexander's arm tightened around me possessively. I've never met anyone who could read situations so accurately. How interesting. Charlotte's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Gwen always was good at observing things. The music swelled and couples began moving toward the dance floor. Alexander turned to me with a smile that made my heart race. "Shall we?" As we moved through the waltz, I caught glimpses of Charlotte watching from the sidelines. Her world was crumbling in real time. No husband, no financial security, and no backup plan. "She's staring," Alexander murmured in my ear. "Let her. She's realizing that some things can't be manipulated." "Is this about more than just tonight?" I looked up at him, seeing the man I had loved and lost, now choosing me again with full knowledge of who I really was. Charlotte has spent her whole life taking what she wants from me. Tonight, she learns that some things fight back. The dance ended and we returned to our table. Charlotte materialized beside us like a storm cloud, her composure completely abandoned. "I need to speak with you privately, Gwen. Anything you need to say, you can say here." "Fine." Charlotte's eyes blazed with fury. "You sabotaged James deliberately. You knew about the investigation and said nothing to protect your own sister." "I protected myself for once. There's a difference." "You vindictive little—" Charlotte caught herself, glancing at Alexander. "You have no idea what you've done. Without James, I have nothing. No home, no income, no future. You have your trust fund," I said calmly. "Not anymore. Father's accounts were frozen yesterday as part of a federal investigation. Everything's gone, Gwen. Everything." The news hit me like ice water. In my previous life, Charlotte's trust fund had sustained her through the divorce proceedings. Without it, she was truly desperate. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it partly. "Are you? Because you seem remarkably well informed about everyone's financial problems, except your own family's." Charlotte turned to Alexander with desperate appeal. "She's using you, Alexander. Gwen has always been jealous of me, and now she's trying to destroy my life out of spite." "That's quite an accusation," Alexander said quietly. "It's the truth. Ask her how she knew about James's legal troubles. Ask her why she never warned me that my marriage was to a criminal." Charlotte's voice rose, drawing stares from nearby tables. "Ask her why she's suddenly so confident and strategic when she spent her whole life being nobody special." The words hung in the air like poison. In my first life, Charlotte's assessment would have devastated me. Now, it only confirmed everything I had learned about her true nature. "You want to know why I didn't warn you?" I stood slowly, meeting her gaze. "Because you never warned me about anything that mattered. When you decided to steal Alexander in my previous life, you didn't warn me. When you manipulated both our marriages to get what you wanted, you didn't warn me. When you let me die alone and bitter while you lived happily with my husband, you definitely didn't warn me." Alexander's eyes widened. Charlotte went pale. "What are you talking about?" Charlotte whispered. "I remember everything, Charlotte. The lake house weekend, the emotional manipulation, how you convinced us all to swap spouses like trading cards." I smiled grimly. "I remember dying in that hospital bed, knowing you got everything you wanted while I lost everything that mattered." "Gwen, you're scaring me. You're not making sense." "I'm making perfect sense for the first time in years." I turned to Alexander. "In another life, I married you and loved you completely. Charlotte stole you from me using guilt and manipulation, just like she's trying to do now. But this time, I know her playbook." Alexander was quiet for a long moment, processing the impossible. Finally, he spoke. "I don't understand what you're saying about previous lives, but I understand this. Charlotte has been trying to manipulate me since the charity gala. She's called my office 6 times, shown up at my building twice, and had 3 mutual friends suggested I would be perfect for her." He looked at Charlotte with distaste. "I've seen her true nature, and frankly, it's ugly." Charlotte's face crumpled. "This isn't fair. Gwen, please, I'm your sister. I need help. You need to learn that actions have consequences. I picked up my purse. Alexander, I think I'm ready to leave. As we walked toward the exit, Charlotte called after us desperately. Gwen, you can't leave me with nothing. What am I supposed to do? I paused at the ballroom doors, looking back at my sister for what I knew would be the last time. You're supposed to figure it out yourself, just like I had to. 6 months later, Alexander proposed in the same restaurant where we'd had our first real conversation. Charlotte had moved back in with our parents, working at a department store and slowly rebuilding her life without the shortcuts she'd always relied on. She sent a wedding invitation to our small ceremony. Inside, she had written, I understand now. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you can forgive me someday. I kept the letter but didn't respond. Some apologies came too late, even with second chances. As Alexander slipped the ring onto my finger, I thought about the cruel irony of fate. Charlotte had been right about one thing. We were perfect for each other. She just never imagined I'd be strong enough to fight for what was mine. This time, I was keeping everything I'd earned.